Gopal Jiu publication presents Paripraśna, the process of inquiry, from the teachings of Srimad Gour Govinda Swami Maharaj, edited by Madhavanda Prabhuji. Part 1. Percepts. Chapter 1. Fully Blossomed Consciousness. Summary. In this chapter, the basic difference between dull unconscious matter and conscious beings is explained. There are 5 different types of consciousness, culminating in Purna Vikasit Chetna, completely blossomed consciousness. This highest level of consciousness begins with sincere inquiry about who we are and what is our ultimate purpose. Chapter 1. Fully Blossomed Consciousness. Sarve Vishwasrajam Garbho Deva Karmatma Shaktiman Vibhajatmanatmanam Ekada Dashadatridha. The total energy of the Mahat Tattva in the form of gigantic Virata Roop divided himself by himself into the consciousness of the living entities, the life of activity, and self-identification, which are subdivided into 1, 10, and 3 respectively. Purport. Consciousness is the sign of the living entity, the soul. The existence of the soul is manifest in the form of consciousness, called Jnana Shakti. The total consciousness is that of the gigantic Virata Roop, and the same consciousness is exhibited in individual persons. The activity of consciousness is performed through the air of life, which is of 10 divisions. The airs of life are called Prana, Apana, Udana, Vyana, and Samana, and are also differently qualified as Naga, Kurma, Krikara, Devadatta, and Dhananja. The consciousness of the soul becomes polluted by the material atmosphere, and thus various activities are exhibited in the false ego of bodily identification. These various activities are described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 41 as Bahu Shakha hi Anantascha Buddhayo Vyavasayinam. The conditioned soul is bewildered into various activities for want of pure consciousness. In pure consciousness, the activity is one. The consciousness of the individual soul becomes one with the supreme consciousness when there is complete synthesis between the two. The monist believes that there is only one consciousness, whereas the Sattvatas, the devotees, believe that although there is undoubtedly one consciousness, they are one because there is agreement. The individual consciousness is advised to dovetail with the supreme consciousness, as instructed by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18 verse 66. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. The individual consciousness, Arjuna, is advised to dovetail with the supreme consciousness and thus maintain the purity of his consciousness. It is foolish to try to stop the activities of consciousness, but they can be purified when they are dovetailed with the Supreme. This consciousness is divided into three modes of self-identification according to the proportion of purity. Adhyatmika, self-identification with the body and mind. Adhibhautika, self-identification with the material products. And Adidaivika, self-identification as a servant of the Lord. Of the three, Adidaivika, self-identification is the beginning of purity of consciousness in pursuance of the desire of the Lord. There are two types of manifestations called Chetan and Achetan. One type of manifestation is conscious, animate, and the other is unconscious, inanimate. The difference is that the soul is present in animate objects, whereas there is no soul in inanimate objects. Where the soul is present, there is consciousness. Where there is no soul, there is no consciousness. Independence. If we go deep into the matter, we can also find some other differences. My Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, has explained this in his purport. The animate object has independence, whereas the inanimate object has no independence. This independence is a most important thing. The Vaishnava acarayas say that this independence is a valuable asset, like a golden jewel. Swadhinata Ratna. Our acharyas have commented on Vyasa Sutra, Jivanam itaranuragti hetur Ishwarasya karunyam tad eva tasyam tanna siddhaye. Karunya means mercy. The Lord has given this independence out of mercy. Karunyat datam tato parameshwarat svatoritya jiva itaro vishayasakta bhavanti ata. It is a question of how one uses one's independence. What is its proper use and what is its abuse? This topic is very deep philosophy. It is not an ordinary topic. If there were no independence, then a jiva would not be called a jiva. A door and a table are inanimate objects, but you are an animate object. You have consciousness and independence. There is no such consciousness and independence within inanimate objects. Karunyam tat. The Lord has given this independence to you out of mercy, but one should understand how to utilize it. One who abuses this independence suffers, and one who makes proper use of it gets eternal pleasure and happiness. It is said, Itarano raktyena vishvarupyat svato ritya jiva itaro vishaya asakta bhavanti ataha. Those who misuse this independence suffer. They forget Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are captured by Maya, the deluding energy. Their interest and attention is diverted to material objects separate from the Lord. Consciousness is present in the Virata Roop, the universal form. Similarly, we also have consciousness. What is there is also in us. Srila Prabhupada has written this in the purport. This consciousness is divided into three modes of self-identification according to the proportion of purity: Adhyatmika, or self-identification with the body and mind; Adhibhautika, or self-identification with the material products; and Adidaivika, or self-identification as a servant of the Lord. Adidaivika is the last thing. Of the three, Adidaivika, self-identification, is the beginning of purity of consciousness in pursuance of the desire of the Lord. Out of mercy, He gave you independence, and it is His desire that you make proper use of it and not abuse it. You have independence. You are a conscious being. You should know how to properly utilize this consciousness. My Guru Maharaj says, the individual consciousness is advised to dovetail with the Supreme Consciousness, as instructed by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 66. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. This is what the Lord desires from you. Out of mercy, He gave you this independence, this consciousness, and you should use it properly. The individual consciousness, Arjuna, is advised to dovetail with the Supreme Consciousness and thus maintain his conscious purity. It is foolish to try and stop the activities of consciousness, but they can be purified when they are dovetailed with the Supreme. This is proper use and abuse of independence. Whoever dovetails his consciousness with the Supreme Consciousness makes the proper use of his independence. Whoever does not do so is abusing it. Therefore, he is put into the category of either adhyatmika, self-identification with the body and mind, or adibhautika, self-identification with the material products. He comes under one of these two categories. He cannot come under this last category, adidaivika, self-identification as a servant of the Lord. This adidaivika category is proper use of independence. Sarva dharman parityajya. Inanimate objects cannot surrender because they have no independence, no consciousness. But you have been given independence by the Lord. You can surrender. As you have been given this independence, you can also abuse it. No, I won't surrender. Why shall I surrender? The natural consequence of refusing to surrender is that you will identify yourself with the body and mind. You will develop a bodily conception of life. Mind is also one of the constituents of the body, the subtle body. One who is not surrendered thinks, whatever I see, whatever I hear, it all belongs to me. I am the provider and the enjoyer here. I am the monarch of all I survey. The consequence of improper use of independence, abuse of your consciousness, is itaranuragti, attachment to other things. If you fail to do what the Lord desires of you, and instead you abuse the independence given to you, you must suffer. The Supreme Lord is very, very merciful. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, I am the only well-wishing friend of all living entities. Then, after returning to his abode, he was thinking, through Arjuna, I gave to all humanity confidential, more confidential, and most confidential instructions. But they could not understand it. Consciousness is very low in Kali Yuga. All are in the categories of Adhyatmika and Adibhautika. They are thinking themselves, the body, and that they are the proprietors. the sense of I and mine is very great. Jivasya moho yam aham mameti. This is the moha, the delusion of the jiva. Because they cannot understand, I have to go again and teach practically. I must give them a practical demonstration how to make the proper use of their independence, how to surrender, and how to develop Krishna Bhakti. To teach this, he came as Gauranga Mahaprabhu. He performs his Leela as a sadhu, guru, acharya. By personally observing this process of surrender, he taught us. One who is intelligent does Krishna bhajan. Je jane Krishna bhaje se bada chatur. He has properly utilized his independence, his consciousness. He has surrendered unto the lotus feet of Krishna. That means he has fulfilled the desire of the Lord. He comes under the category of Adidevika, self-identification as a servant of the Lord. This self-identification is the beginning of purity of consciousness in pursuance of the desire of the Lord. Stopping at the end of the second paragraph on page number 12. Thank you. Hare Krishna.